Let's begin with some loving kindness meditation. So before we begin, you may bring your body to a resting position. You may do a couple of deep inhaling and exhaling. You may also quickly scan your body to move away from any agitations. But send loving kindness to the parts of your body where it is needed. You may as well choose to allow your eyes to look downwardly and remain half open, like in some Buddha statues that you may have seen. Notice the subconscious state of your mind that is supporting your present overall function of the body and your mind. Notice also your conscious mind on the surface, like seeing the tip of an iceberg, and how large the unseen corpus is. What is mostly present in your present awareness? This may be a good question to ask. Some things you become aware of, you even have names for them. But for now, notice what is negative and what is positive, and what is neutral. How large and small they are in your present state of awareness. Also ask the question, is what I'm experiencing connected with my heart? Is it coming out of my heart? Is it supporting my intentions? These are valid questions. They all ask something important from us. Now, I ask you to imagine your favorite coffee cup, the mug that you use, the container that you use to drink coffee, tea, beverages at home. No need to go into details of it, but you are aware of the shape of it. Now imagine its disappearance, and you may replace that space with this peace house, the large structure here. Do you feel spacious, how large the space here is? And allow that to disappear as well. And now you will hear the Buddha's words of loving kindness, and I will pause. You may capture these words as much as you can, and generate the feeling of loving kindness in your heart. You may not necessarily feel it, but you have the intention to do so. So, before the Buddha gave these instructions of loving kindness, in this discourse, the discourse of establishing, radiating loving kindness, he begins by what should be done by us. So hear these words with no sense of obligation to remember any of these. But if you encounter any word that speaks to you, perhaps at this session and in your life after, you may stick to that and allow it to teach us, teach you in every way it can. And also listen to these words with an open heart, with wanting to understand without the need to fall into a judgmental mind. So here I begin. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature, I will say that again. Not proud or demanding in nature, let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none. The great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths. Outwards and unbounded. Freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. You may come out of your meditation and you may as well stretch. You can take this home. We have a verse from Dhammapada for discussion today because we have Joanna on Zoom. I'm sharing the screen so that she also can read together with us. And there are various versions of this story. And it's easy to find them on internet. Just all you need to do is to type something like Dhammapada verse 142 or Santati Brahmin or a piece from this Pali verse. I tried santo, danto, niyato, brahmacārī and it came up. But I tried alaṅkato chepi, it didn't show up. Just playing with words. But we were reading Vibhanga-pakarana, that is one of the commentaries recently on our Wednesday Zoom Pali discussion with Professor Halise. And in that commentary, I found this Pali verse and thought it's beautiful. And I knew we had memorized this as monks to qualify for the full ordination as part of our qualification process. Full ordination is a stage that monks go through after completing 20 years of age in their life. They qualify to receive full ordination, but in Sri Lankan tradition, you can get it when you are 19, but they add the time you stayed in your mom's womb to make it 20. So that's what happened to me. And the monk who has memorized most verses goes to the top of the line. I happen to be that one too. It was a very nerve-wracking situation because you are presented in front of all the chief prelates in your lineage, and they ask questions from these. They gave the first line, and you have to complete it and continue until they tell you to stop and ask from somewhere else. But they were kind, and I had memorized all these, before the day that day. On top of having to go to university and all that, we have done some memorizations. But most of these things, not Dhammapada, but other chantings, we chant them regularly, so they come easily to your mind. But this is a beautiful teaching here. The gist of it is that you can be called a monk, and this teaching tells how and why and how you get qualified to be called a monk. The term for monk they have used here is Brahmin, Brahmaṇa, the highest nobility, even now in the Indian societies, in terms of the caste system. The Pali goes as this: alaṅkato cepi samaṃ careyya santo danto niyato brahmacārī sabbesu bhūtesu nidhāya daṇḍaṃ so brāhmaṇo so samaṇo sa bhikkhu. Okay. Alaṅkato cepi, although he is highly decorated, samaṃ careyya, if he is calm, samaṃ careyya, he dwells equal to that state, decorated. Santo, he is calm. Danto, tamed. Niyato brahmacārī. This is not the literal translation that you find here. Brahmacārī is someone who lives a holy life. Niyato is sense-controlled. Sabbesu bhūtesu, in all beings. Nidhāya daṇḍaṃ, he does not use a stick to harm them. So the translation here is he does not take weapons with the intention of harming beings. So brāhmaṇo, doesn't say H here, brāhmaṇo, so samaṇo sa bhikkhu. That kind of person who has all the qualities can be called a bhikkhu. That is the Pali word for a Buddhist monk. He can be called a Brahman and also a samana. Samana is the word for recluse. Okay. Okay, now it's your turn to read the story for me. You can begin with the story of Santati, the minister. Can you please, all together?
While residing at the Jetavana monastery, the Buddha uttered verse 142 of this book with reference to Santati, the minister of King Pasenadi of Kosala. On one occasion, Santati, the minister, returned after suppressing a rebellion on the border. King Pasenadi was so pleased with him that he honored the minister with the gift of the riches and glory of a lived together the dancing girl to entertain him for 7 days. For 7 days, the king's minister enjoyed himself to his heart's content, getting intoxicated with drink and infatuated with the young dancer. On the 7th day, riding the ornamented royal elephant, he went down to the riverside for a bath. On the way, he met the Buddha going on an alms round, and being drunk, he just bowed casually as a sign of respect to the Buddha. The Buddha smiled, and Ananda asked the Buddha why he smiled. So the Buddha said to Ananda, "Ananda, this minister will come to see me this very day, and after I have given him the first discourse, will become an Arahant. Soon after becoming an Arahant, he will realize Parinirvana." Santati and his party spent the whole day at the riverside, bathing, eating, drinking, and thus thoroughly enjoying themselves. In the evening, the minister and his party went to the garden to have more drinks and to be entertained by the dancer. The dancer, on her part, tried her best to entertain the minister. For the whole week, she was living on a reduced diet to keep herself trim. While dancing, she suffered a severe stroke and collapsed, and at that instant she died with her eyes and mouth wide open.
The minister was shocked and deeply distressed. In agony, he tried to think of a refuge and remembered the Buddha. He went to the Buddha, accompanied by his followers, and related to him about the grief and anguish he suffered on account of the sudden death of the dancer. He then said to the Buddha, "Venerable Sir, please help me get over my sorrow.
Be my refuge and let me have the peace of mind."
To him the Buddha replied, "Rest assured, my son,
you have come to one
who could help you,
one who could be a constant solace to you, and who will be your refuge.
The tears you have shed due to the death of this dancer throughout the land of the universe is more than the waters of all the oceans." The Buddha then instructed the minister in verse. The meaning of the verse is as follows.
In the past, there has been clinging upadana due to the craving. Get rid of it. In future, do not let such clinging occur in you.
Do not also harbor any clinging to the present. By not having any clinging, craving, and passion will be calmed in you, and you will realize nirvana.
After hearing the verse, the minister attained arahantship. Then realizing
that his life spent was at an end,
he said to the Buddha, "Venerable Sir,
now
having
we
now
realize
already
apparently
come, for my time has come." The Buddha consenting, Santati rose to a height of 7 toddy palms into the sky, and there, while meditating on the element of fire, Tefo Kachina, he passed away realizing Parinibbana. His body went up in flames, his blood and flesh burned up, and the boneless dhatu fell through the sky and dropped on the clean piece of cloth which was spread by the bhikkhus as instructed by the Buddha. At the congregation, the bhikkhus asked the Buddha,
"Venerable Sir, the minister had
realized
realized Brahmacārī
dressed
dressed in full regalia.
is
He
he
is
a
a samana or an brahmana. To them, the Buddha replied,
Bhikkhus, my son can be called both
a samana and a
a
brahmana.
Then the Buddha spoke in verse as follows. Verse 142. Though he is daily decked,
If he is calm, free from all defilements, and has his senses controlled,
if
if he is established in Magga and Sita, if he is pure and has laid aside envy,
little
weapons
towards
towards all
all
beings, he
is
is indeed a brahmana, says samana, and a bhikkhu.
Thank you for reading that. So what was interesting to me is that for 7 days, that little piece that we find in the story, what I think about it is that 7 days is enough for us to build defilements in our minds, from having nothing in your mind to having so much. Especially in this case, when he was presented with a young dancer, maybe he had no feelings for her in the beginning, but now having developed all those thoughts, also drunk, he had enough time to develop that kind of passion, to feel such grief upon her death. Because deeper the attachment is, deeper the sorrow. So the symbolism here is very striking that way. What other pieces you find interesting here?
What was sort of interesting about the weapons? I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't really figure out, were the weapons the attachment, or how did that work?
I think now the story begins with suppressing a rebellion on the border.
Makes more sense.
And the king sent him, and he was the best man to suppress it. And all the guys were at peace, nobody was killed. So apparently this minister Santati, as his name goes, is a calm, wise person who is highly respected, had a huge following, like a popular minister who does the right thing for his subjects, for his following. But to be a calm person, they don't see the need of having weapons with them, that in one way they surrender to the concept of death, knowing that it can happen anytime, so there's no need to protect themselves. Even in self-defense, they have realized that part. And also, even if someone comes harming toward you, your weapon is loving kindness. No retaliation. There is no need of weapons. Is one of the worst inventions in human history, considering how much harm these guns and other weapons have done. It's like, I think someone wise said, no mouse has ever invented a mouse trap, but us humans have done. So dropping weapons is a sign that he is at peace. He has loving kindness in his heart towards those beings, especially those who even harm or has an intention to harm you. Because you see, protecting your heart is so important than retaliation.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think the story of Mallika, she got killed in a house fire set by her rival, Margandia. The only safety she had was her loving kindness. Because of that, she was born in a heavenly realm, where she is still happily abiding. Because they have a long time to live. Not that I've seen her or anything, but I'm just assuming that. And her rival Margandia got killed by the king with her following, and has a long time in an unhappy state somewhere. So that way, protecting our heart is so important. The only protection monks have is loving kindness. Anything else that is striking to you in your story, in this story? So look at the verse here that made Santati an arahant. Arahant is the word for an enlightened monk who has abandoned lust, hatred, and delusion. So ara is those, and hant is destroyed. Lust, hatred, and delusion destroyed. In the past, there has been in you, this is the worst translation ever. In the past, there has been clinging in you due to craving. So the Buddha generally talks about all the incidents in the past, in previous lives of a person. So this is a general statement to say that in the past there has been clinging due to craving in you. Get rid of it. So craving is one of the links of dependent arising, and clinging is the next link of dependent arising. Due to craving, there is clinging. If you asked what is the cause of clinging, then the answer comes, that is craving. Craving arises dependent on sense faculties and externality, and your consciousness being conscious on what to crave. So the Buddha is asking him to get rid of it. He is sober at this time. He was drunk before. And also now the Buddha talks about the future. In future, do not let such clinging occur in you. So dropping the burden of the past, dropping the burden of the future, because they all happen now, only when you think of them. Do not also harbor any clinging in the present. By not having any clinging, craving, and passion, by not having any clinging, craving, and passion will be calmed in you, and you will realize Nibbana. If you pause here and meditate a little bit on this, let's start from here. Someone said, it's like a poetic statement. If you delete all your past mistakes, you will get erased. In dependent origination, you don't delete craving, or you don't delete clinging, because that means, trying to delete your eye, ear, nose, tongue. That's like trying to remove them. That their functions continue. But what we do with them, with our sense faculties, toward bringing up craving and sensual desire and clinging, that stops. Other things arise dependently and vanish dependently, but the side of defilements, they don't manifest. That way, the mind of the person is free from clinging. They are not erased. They are not deleted. They continue to live until they die, but the realization helps them live a life free from defilements. Does it make any sense? Not sure. I try to say it without going to the technical words like dependent origination too much. But it comes in teachings like this. If you think about it, they continue to arise, not all the links, but the function of your body and mind. The Buddha, for example, even after his enlightenment, he ate. He tasted food, but he removed that clinging from him. It did not arise after his awakening. So, Nibbana, or becoming an Arahant, enlightenment that way, is not the disappearance of anything except those defilements arising in us, the impurities arising in us. Does that make any sense? What are you thinking?
So for me, the thing that's confusing about the dependent arising framework is I feel like in some of the links, so like, the first link is like ignorance. And like, it's like, oh, that link, like you are supposed to like get rid of that link, right? Or maybe not. But it does seem like there's certain links that are like, oh, you see through them and they go away. And then there are other certain links where like one of them is like your sense faculties, one of them is like contact.
They don't go away.
Right. And so there are like certain, so like the different links, some of them like go away and some of them don't go away.
But they do go away. If they did defilements before, they no longer do them. Because you have true knowledge, not ignorance. Ignorance made them do those things, but now you are on true knowledge. Anya is the word for that. You know. When you know something, you don't believe the lie anymore. Even if I tell you to believe it, you know the truth. There's no believing in it anymore. So I think you understood the concept there, that some of those pieces in the link remains, because there's no way we can undo them. Contact, six sense faculties. This is about the 12 links of dependent origination, which I will teach at a different session. It takes little more time. Maybe we need to have the whole chart in front of us so that we can relate to it and look at it. But I think, although it starts from ignorance, I encourage you to start from the end. Like Prince Siddhartha asked, why aging? What's the answer for aging? Why people get sick? Why people die? What are these monks doing? And then he went to realize that, there's grief, sorrow, and lamentation in those beings who are born. So birth is bringing these to us. What happens before birth? So that's kind of backward questioning that he did. And he also understood where birth happens, Andaja. Beings are born from eggs. Jalabuja. Beings are born from Jalabu, wombs. And Sansedaja. Beings are born from moisture. And Upapadika. Beings are born spontaneously, like heavenly beings. So these four categories that he observed. And he was asking, there must be more to this. And people create some forms of existence. This he called bhava. In sensual realms, in jhanic realms, and in immaterial realms. Material and immaterial realms. These are called some attainments. Those who have developed their minds to infinite space will be born accordingly in those places and will remain there for a long, long, long time. That is the nature of such fine states. But then the question came, like, what is the reason for existing in these places? What is the reason for bhava? Clinging. We cling to them. We cling to what we have realized. We cling to sensual realm. We cling to a form, human form or animal form, or any kind of form that, or smells, or all kinds of sensual stuff, or jhanic or immaterial stuff. And the question he asks, what is the reason for clinging? We crave. What's the reason for craving? There's contact. What's the reason? What's contact? Like eye contact, ear contact, all that. What's the reason for that? Well, before craving, there's feelings. And feelings are threefold: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And we divide it that way because there is craving. For feelings to arise, these are called hedonic feelings. For them to arise, there's contact. For contacts to be present, six sense faculties should be present. For six sense faculties to be of use, mentality and materiality should come into contact, come into play, a role in there. In materiality, there is the body that is made of the four elements. In mentality, we have the rest, Vedana, feelings, that is again repeated toward the end, in the middle. Sanya, perceptions, volition, and consciousness. So that is the five aggregates. That is also called mentality and materiality. Don't try to understand any of this. This is only the two of us talking here. And for them to be present, the formations play a role. Mental formations, verbal formations, and bodily formations. Bodily formations include in-breath and out-breath, verbal, thinking and examining thought, these thoughts and mental perceptions, feelings, and consciousness again. And they arise because of ignorance. So backward thinking, and then how, because of ignorance, you can go back, back and forth with this line, and what gets realized and what disappears. What actually disappears is lust, hatred, and delusion, because you see the truth of how the mechanism happens. And you no longer can react or act the same way because you see the truth. May you see that truth. Does that make any sense?
Yes and no. And that like I can interpret what you're saying in certain ways. But I think the thing that's confusing to me about that specific teaching is that, that teaching is supposed to be in some ways, like my understanding is like all encompassing. Like that teaching contains like everything. But what's somewhat confusing is that like the different links are like very different qualities. If you think about like the 5 aggregates, like, oh, I understand why that's like a grouping. Versus like the 12 links, like, like the 6 or like the 6 senses, like that's a very like, oh, like that's a very thing. And that's like something that's like gonna be there. Versus like my understanding is like, oh, ignorance, potential, or like clinging or craving, like those are things that like you can like diminish how much they show up. Like you can diminish how much clinging there is. You can diminish how much craving there is. If we go through our lives and those amount of things go up or down. The way I was interpreting you just running through the links and how to interpret it is that when you see that this is just in some ways like an impersonal mechanism, it's just like a mechanism. It's just like something that happens. And it's not then like, oh, like this, you just see it as a mechanism. And when you see it as a mechanism, then you don't internalize it as having the same power because you see it as a mechanism. And so you see like, oh, this is happening because of X, Y, and Z. And so seeing it as a mechanism in that way, seeing the link gives you some distance. And so it doesn't have power over you in the same way that when you don't see that link, it does have like power over you.
It actually, yeah, so it is exactly that objective nature, objects here gives rise to the subject, a person, which is the delusion of a sense of a self, seeing that there's a doer. When you reduce that clinging, it also reduces the ignorance level. It's like the ink of a printer. It gets lower and lower with use. And here the use is realization. And it gets the ignorance also. It's like the black ink goes low. But it is confusing also that ignorance is placed at first. That's what I was addressing, because people tend to begin from there and get entangled further, not seeing how, in the case of Gautama, Siddhartha, he started, his line of questioning came from, where what he didn't understand. And then ignorance was placed at first for that reason. Of course, ignorance is the cause for all these things, but they all have the effect of a pomegranate, like all the seeds all connected.
Yeah.
And covered by a shell. Yeah. So I think we got to stop here because the other group is coming now. Did you have any burning questions before we finish?
I'm just thinking about forgiveness, and that's like to me, like what this evokes. But yeah,
How did forgiveness come to this?
I mean, it's so stark to me how like there's almost like he was doing these things, participating in the defilements and like creating harm. And he in a sense is like responsible for this girl's death in the way that I read it. But it's like, despite that, maybe like he's close to nirvana. These things are always accessible. And to me, I guess that's really moving. Really profound. I don't know.
I see what you are reading there, being an active reader. Also, had she not died, I think the minister perhaps would have given her a good life. The king would have given. Usually these royal dancers get mansions as gifts and become instantly popular, become celebrities afterwards. And so she would have lived a good life, lavish life. But it was also somewhat saddening to see the ending of her life there, where she did not become enlightened or no mention of where she is, what happened to her. Because she's also an important person for someone else's enlightenment. And the way she's portrayed as her mouth open, eyes open, that's kind of bringing revulsion. But prior to that, she must have danced beautifully, and she continuously danced and had less food. And yeah, please forgive the minister. Now he's an arahant anyway, so he does not need forgiveness in that sense. But it's interesting. Yeah. All right, we'll stop here and share some merits. Please think of Bhante Samhita's father who said goodbye to us today as we share merits. May the suffering ones be suffering free and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's teachings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Joanna. Good night.